Vicki Wright Hamilton, and welcome to another segment of Ignite, ready to spark your passion and fuel your leadership journey. This is where ambition meets action and transformation begins. Let's light the fire and keep it burning. And today, we have a great guest who's definitely going to ignite your fire. I promise you do not want to miss this segment. Please welcome Deirdre Breakenridge, who is a marketing and PR expert. Welcome, Deirdre.
Thank you, Vicki. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. And thank you so much for joining on the show because I know you got a lot of fire to give to our constituents that are going to be listening to this episode.
Well, I appreciate that.
No problems. Get started. You know, we talk a lot about communication and storytelling. Can you give our audience a little bit about what is storytelling? What does it really mean? And how do we do it?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but storytelling is your way of showing up and being human. It's sharing a part of yourself, your brand, or maybe your company. And I think that the best stories come from the heart and making that strong connection with the people that you're trying to reach. So that's definitely the first part of storytelling.
So, how do you recommend someone get started with that? You know, a lot of times we'll say, oh, well, my story, what does it mean? Nobody really wants to hear about me. So, how do you make a story inviting? How do you make it so that people go, I want to learn more about that?
Well, sometimes it's a matter of understanding your own story, pulling out the best parts of it. And sometimes you need someone else to help you do that. You can share and get some feedback, but then it's making your passion connection with somebody else's passion. In other words, you want to take your story and bring it to the people who need to hear it. And the only way to do that is really to be listening and to tuning in. And if you're on social media, then there are tools that help you to listen to say, oh, now I know who needs my story. And that creates the impact.
Now you said something that's really inviting because we all talk about the use of social media. Can you share with us some of those tools and some of the best practices in terms of using social media to do that?
Well, sometimes I just go out there and listen. I've written books in the past, and I used to be on Twitter. Now it's X, but I would use some tools as a way to aggregate conversations, to find out what people were saying. And some of those tools could be as simple as a Talkwalker search. It could be Brand Watch, which is sophisticated monitoring. It could be a tool called Mention, where you put in keywords or phrases and you can see what people are saying around that. So I always wanted to go into different communities. You could do it on LinkedIn, you can do it on Facebook, and I'm sure on Instagram, just to see what do people care about. Because if there's similarities between what you want to share and what they care about, that's a point of passion that intersects and gives you a reason to be there to share.
You know, I like the fact you gave some tools. I'm gonna take those tools and start using some of them myself. You know, I
Even
think one
Google Alerts, even you can use Google Alerts as a tool to be able to
okay.
understand what's being shared out there, especially about you. You can search yourself.
Yeah, I've done enough about searching on myself, but you know, it's all that market research, taking the time to do it and getting that information. And it's always helpful when you have people who can share what tools they use, the outcomes they're receiving, how beneficial it is to them, so that you know that it's like, yeah, I should try this one versus that one. So I really appreciate, you know, those tips because it does help us continue to move forward. So, you know,
Even
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, even something as simple about learning how people view you, take your website and scrape all the words off of it and put it into a tool. It's a word art tool, and create a word cloud. And then maybe go and take your LinkedIn recommendations and take all the words that people say about you, use the same tool, create a word cloud. Ask your customers to give you 3 words about your brand, and then take all those words and make a word cloud and look at the 3 clouds and say, what are the similarities? What matches? And then even build stories around that.
You know what? I've never even thought about that before. And I have a lot of recommendations out there, and I never thought about, is there a tool to go and scrape it and tell me, what those similarities are. I really appreciate that. That's fantastic. See, this is why we do this. We learn something every single day, and I'm a continuous
Good.
learner. So this is
Me
so
too.
exciting to me, igniting my energy about, okay, now I gotta, hey, after I do this show, I gotta do this on my own business. Let's go make that happen. I
Yes, that's good.
I really appreciate that. Because I think about, we could actually do even blogs off of that, or think about content we want to share, in terms
Oh,
of understanding what that means.
absolutely. So once you see some of the common themes around what your brand looks like, what people associate you with, where your expertise is, you then see buckets of content can form. And that's where, yes, write those blog posts, do that LinkedIn newsletter, and stick with those topics. Maybe go on some podcasts and talk about your themes. That's all your storytelling, and it's consistent, and people start to recognize you for those topics.
That's great advice. And let me ask you another question that I know a lot of times comes up, when you're beginning to talk about, and you mentioned the word podcast, and really understanding what's a good one, what's a bad one, which one should I get on, and which one shouldn't I? What questions should you ask before you actually get on a podcast to ensure that your storytelling, or the things that you want to offer, are really going to reach the masses so you can get some benefit off of it?
Well, you want to make sure that you're aligned with the nature of the show, number one. So you want to be able to watch some episodes, see the host, the guests, find out, where do they distribute? Is it a live show? Is it recorded? Where will it live? Will it be on YouTube? Also ask, who is that audience? What do they care about? What are their titles? And the more that you can dig in and familiarize yourself with the way the host of the podcast shapes the format, that's going to help you to decide, is this a place for me, and do I feel comfortable? And will this help my brand?
That's great. That's great insights, because I know that that's one of the things. And it used to be, oh, how many, and I know it matters how many people are watching and where they're watching and things like that, and people consume media so many different ways,
Yes, they
today,
do.
and, and, and,
That
and
has
at different
changed.
hours.
Correct. And I do think there's something to be said. Sometimes it's not just the numbers. Numbers are vanity. You can have a podcast with millions of people who are downloading, but are they watching the whole podcast? And are you in the beginning, or are you at the end? Maybe they're not even seeing you. Small, tight communities and loyal followers, those are podcasts that you want to look at. How tight is the podcaster with the community?
Wow. Wow. Okay. Now, you bring up something. How tight is the podcaster with the community? How can I determine that? Are there some things that I can do? And I know I'm getting a little bit more tactical, but I know that as people are doing this, they're trying to figure out, oh, say, what's step one, what's step two? Can we give them a little bit of, how do I really make that connection? What do I do?
It's not easy. You have to do some digging, but you're looking for conversations in communities. So if you're in there listening, which means monitoring, searching, you're able to see, is the community asking the podcaster questions? Are followers on somebody's blog? Are they on their LinkedIn? Are they on their TikTok or Instagram? There's ways to be able to tell their level of engagement. And it is worth it because wherever you put your brand, it's an extension of your brand. So you just want to be sure to take those extra steps.
That's good information and allows us to really to understand how we make that alignment. And as we're talking about this and talking about our brand and putting it out there, I have one curious question that I know comes up all the time. We talk about branding and marketing, and we talk about PR. Can you give us just a little bit of a difference between the marketing side and a PR, and how we leverage PR when we're getting our stories out there?
That's always been, I don't want to say a challenge, but understanding there are differences between PR and marketing, but yet they need each other. And if you can think of it this way, when you look at public relations, that's your opportunity to have somebody else talking about you. And that's where all the editorial and the media comes in, or even now today, your customers and their testimonials out there on social media. You're not paying anybody to speak on your behalf, but they're sharing just because they trust and they're adding credibility to your brand. On the marketing side, it's more the promotion, the advertising, the way we're paying influencers. That's all to drive business and leads and sales, although public relations can help and is a part of that puzzle. And when you balance PR and marketing and they're on the same page, that helps your branding, because then what the marketers are doing and how the PR people are supporting the brand, it's all consistent and you look like the same brand no matter where you are.
Thanks so much for that, Deirdre. We're going to take a break, a station break. And when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. Stay and hold on. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And thanks so much, Deirdre, for that. I'm telling you, you are just dropping one nugget after another. The fire is burning, 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 and allowing us to truly transform. As I think about, as I was reading a lot about what you're doing, and I just love something that you have created and developed. And it sparked my interest. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to share this with my audience. You have this model called Feel. What is Feel?
Feel is a communication model that came out of a passion project. And it's something that helped me through a period of grieving. It comes from a sad story. My stepdaughter passed away. And when that happened, I really wanted to understand what millennials were thinking and feeling. She was 24 years old. And the more that I spoke with millennials to understand, what do you want in your relationships? What do you expect from the people around you? What do you expect from business professionals, leaders? I got all of these stories, Vicki. And at the end of the day, after 2 years of this project, I started placing the stories into buckets. And it spelled the word FEEL, which stands for face fears, engage with empathy, use ethics and good judgment, and unleash your love. And if you think about it, how do you have a relationship if you don't feel? So that's where it comes from.
Wow. That is, first of all, let me give you my condolences. I am so sorry.
Thank you.
Losing a child in a family it's horrendous. And so I'm sorry that you had to face those times, but we know she lives with you as times go on.
Yes.
And the fact that you built something that you're talking about, that you went to millennials and you wanted to understand as you were going through this process. I think the thing that that's so important is you're helping others to understand another generation. And, millennials had gotten bad raps for so long, old things have been given to them and et cetera, in terms of those behaviors that are there. But what I'd love to understand is once you develop this model, how do you help others to apply it? What do we do to apply this model in terms of helping ourselves to feel?
Well, I think applying the model means facing your own fears. Number one, what is it that holds you back? What is the limiting beliefs? What is it that makes you have a knee-jerk reaction? And recognizing what stops you from furthering a conversation and understanding somebody else's perspective. So that's the fears part. And there are a number of questions that you can ask to get past that, just so you can have a better conversation. When it comes to the empathy, I think that starts with our ability to listen and for people to tune in and say, am I fully present here? I do a little test I with my executives. I say, I want you to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose and feel the air. And after you do that a little bit, open your eyes. And what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you feel? And that tunes you in. And okay, now you're ready to listen and learning active listening. The ethics, I think that you have to live your values. What do you stand for? Are you upholding those values in your company? And can you state your values in 30 seconds or less? That's a little test. And on the love part, I want to just key into something you said, Vicki, where millennials get a bad rap. You hear so often, oh, it's handed to them, they're lazy. No, they're not. You have to meet their passion, especially in the workplace. And if you can unleash the love like they do, they're on board and they're going to take it the distance with you.
Wow. Wow. I think there's so many leaders that really need to hear that message,
Thank
as
you.
we continue to move forward. And I appreciate the fact that you have developed this model, to make to help others as they're continuing to move forward. So can you I want to talk a bit about the communications process, a little bit about how we go through that process. And from your experience and expertise, any tips or tricks that you can provide for enhancing that communication and moving it?
Sure. Well, that's one of my favorite questions. So thank you for asking, because I boiled down igniting your communication into 4 C's. It's very simple. You first have to be calm, to get clear, to then be concise, to be confident, to have confident communication. And it's not just your confidence and how you show up and deliver confidence and communication, but the confidence that people have in you. And those 4 C's, they matter. And I'm happy to talk about any of them.
Well, sure. Why don't you share a little bit about each? Share a little
Okay.
bit about each. I mean, that, 4 C's, I'm sitting here going, oh my goodness. Sure, share a little bit. I'm sure the audience would love to hear more.
Thank you. Well, the first C, calm, it comes down to your brain and the way you breathe. Because if you're belly breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, that's maximum benefit to major organs, including your brain. And when you breathe properly, you're calm and you can handle anything. Because if you think about it, how do you ignite communication and make that great connection if you're all over the place because you're not calm? So step number 1, check in on your breathing and you're going to relax. Step number 2 is to get clear, but it goes beyond the words you're using. It's the clarity and crispness in your voice. How do you sound? Are you modulating your pitch? Do you hit the highs when you're excited? Do you hit the lows when you want to say something important? What's your tone? How do you emphasize when you speak? Your voice matters, so that's the clear. The concise, are you verbally fluent and using intentional words? So are you sharing what you want when you want to say it? And it's tight because you're creating vivid pictures in somebody's mind when you speak, and every word is worth $10. So you don't have a word salad. And then the last part is confident, which is in your delivery. When you can align your vocal cues, your verbal cues with your body language, everything flows. You have a presence, you have that posture, that way of delivery that says I'm completely in my communications flow and people have confidence.
So, what do you recommend for people to do um, to gain these skills? I mean, understanding voice inflection, understanding intentionality, um, being able to have the right tone at the right time. Um, do we need voice training? How do you get this? What do you do if you're not sure in your delivery?
Some people do need voice training, and some people incorporate it into a what I call an influential communications training program. So I use technology, and there's technology out there that you can use that analyzes your voice. I use a great tool. It's called Voice Analyst. And when you speak on the tool, it shows you how you're modulating. It shows you your volumes, your peaks, your highs, your lows. It really informs you about your voice so that you can make changes. But you can't make your voice sound good if you're not calm and breathing properly. So I highly recommend practicing the belly breathing and using breathing techniques. Getting to concise is also some what I call testing around verbal fluency. There is an FAS test that I give all of my executives, and FAS it's just letters, and it's your ability to share in 60 seconds how many words can you say that start with the letter S or F or any letter really that you want to choose. So those are some of the ways that I help professionals to learn more simply about their voice or getting to concise and verbal fluency.
Wow. Wow. This is so exciting to me, and I'm so invigorated because as a person who has always struggled from the perspective of being my authentic self, of having lots of passion and joy. And I know that I work really, really hard not to offend people because I am excited and because I do love what I do. I love life. I love where I am, every experience. You go through trials and tribulations, but they make you stronger. When you can serve others and to see them grow and develop. But I struggle a lot because I really want to make sure I don't offend, right? That I am being calm, I'm being confident, I'm being authentic, but I'm not
Yes.
offending. And that
Well,
balance, has been really, really hard, but I continue to work at it all the time.
Well,
You
just the fact that you work at it and your awareness,
know?
that's what helps you to keep the balance. I also read body language, and I can't help but reading all the time. You have passion and energy, and it comes through. I see it in your facial expressions, your hand movements are on point, so your gestures are where they should be. You're in your flow, Vicky. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I think your awareness is something that I hope more people will have out there. So keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Deirdre. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. If someone wants to get in touch with you, can you tell them how quickly?
Yes, sure. You can always find me on LinkedIn, and you can also email me at Deirdre at pureperformancecom with 2Ms.com.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Can't wait until we have the next Ignite show. See you soon.
Thank you.